I'm working on a custom trunk build for two 12-inch subwoofers that features several custom beauty panels. How did I complete the upholstery process on these? And how did I coat the subwoofer enclosure? Hey everyone, I'm Mark. Welcome to CarAudioFabrication, the channel where together we learn how to master car audio and how to design, build, and install our dream car audio system. Really quick before we get started, a shout out to our show sponsor, New Concepts. If you watched the previous video, you'll see that I used New Concepts power wire and power distribution for the custom amplifier rack on this build. But also on this project, we're using the New Concepts SS Karma Series speaker wire. This tinned OFC wire features a twisted construction and comes in 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 gauge sizes. There's even a 4-conductor 12 gauge version that makes wiring component speakers a breeze. You guys can learn more about this at the links down in the video description. Let's get started. To get this process started, I first want to address the back side of all these different pieces that I'm going to be wrapping with the upholstery materials. I want the back side of these pieces to have more of a finished look, so I'm going to be using some flat black paint. As you can imagine, this is simple enough, but I want to knock this out first. That way the paint can be drying while I'm doing my texture coating, and it will be dry in time for me to do the upholstery process later in the video. On one of these pieces, since I had threaded inserts, I want to make sure I protect the threads from gumming them up with any paint, so I'm applying these simple little stickers that I found online. Once those are on, I can paint the backside of that panel as well. Before I start applying the coating to the enclosure itself, I do want to prepare my work area. And in this case, I'm using this paper here. This is called a rosin paper. It's typically used in gardening or for outdoor projects. But in this case, I'm using it to protect my work surface because it's a nice thick paper that does a good job of protecting the work surface. And it's also relatively inexpensive. I once again have a bunch of threaded locations on this part as well that I want to protect before I start coating, so I'm going to get those stickers on there. I also want to avoid having any of the coating on this inside edge of the cutout holes, so I'm applying some tape onto that. And in order to make sure that I have the tape perfectly match up with the edge there, I'm intentionally overlapping it and then just cutting the excess tape away. With all of our prep work now complete, here is the coating that I'm going to be using. This is called Duratex. Now I do want to point something out because when I've used this in previous videos, some people have mistakenly referred to this as a bed liner. This is not meant to be a bed liner for a vehicle. Although it does sort of have that appearance when it's finished drying, this is in fact specially formulated intentionally to be a coating for speaker enclosures. I've used this several times on the channel before. If you guys do want to see the related video that goes into detail on this coating, I'll have a link for you guys at the end of this video. Something worth noting is you are going to need a special roller in order to use this coating. This roller gives it its textured style appearance, but other than the roller, this is pretty simple to use with just an average paint tray. Pour it in the tray, you get it onto the roller, and then you're going to spread it out onto your workpiece. Some areas we're going to need to use a chip brush in order to work it down into the corners, but other than that, this is simple to apply. Now, because this coating does dry so hard, we want to make sure that we remove any of the protective tape or stickers before it fully dries. In this case, I did end up finding with the stickers that it was a bit of a pain to actually remove them. So for coating the rest of the enclosure, what I did is I pulled them off first and then applied the coating. And I was just really careful to make sure that while I was rolling across, I wasn't pushing down too much on the foam roller and allowing any of that material to go down into the hole. Instead, I just carefully coated the top surface, making sure it wasn't gumming up the threads. From there, I was able to finish coating the rest of the enclosure. I allowed everything to dry for a few hours and then flipped the enclosure over to finish up the back side. And with that, here we have it, my friends. Our enclosure is completely coated with the Duratex. Now I'm going to turn my attention to doing the upholstery process for all of these pieces here now that the back side of these is dry from our painting process earlier. I want to make sure that I protect the part that's not being upholstered from any overspray of the upholstery adhesive, so I'm going to apply some masking tape to tape these off. I'll use that rabbited edge that we made during the woodworking process in order to cut away some of the excess tape on more of these complex shaped areas. Here we go, guys. We've got the back side of all of these panels completely protected. Now the first pieces of upholstery material that I'm going to apply is this trunk style carpet here. We're going to be applying this to the two side pieces as well as the surround piece. You can see that I've done a little bit of prep work here. Remember, prep work is always key when it comes to doing this upholstery process. So I've trimmed out some pieces already for all of my pieces. That way I can shoot the adhesive on all of these at the same time. For our upholstery adhesive, we're using DAP Weldwood Lando Top and Trim Adhesive. Now I'll put a link for this for you guys down in the video description. This is by far the best upholstery adhesive that you want to use for this sort of project. Avoid using the off-the-shelf stuff from your local hardware store. It's not the same. It doesn't work as well. This will never lift. So the deal with this adhesive is it's a contact adhesive. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be spraying it on both our material and on our parts. My sprayer here is part of the 3M AccuSpray system. I'll put a link for this down in the video description for you guys as well. And the advantage of this system here is this tip is completely disposable. And the advantage of that is when I'm done, I can just throw away this tip. I don't have to spend a ton of time cleaning the sprayer. This works well when we're spraying something like adhesive because adhesive has a tendency to gum everything up inside here over time. So let's cut to a musical montage. You guys don't want to be listening to my air compressor run, but I've also got my protective respirator here that I'm going to be wearing. Here we have it, guys. The carpet pieces are now completely wrapped. This turned out really well, but do remember that carpet is a bit more forgiving than upholstery vinyl. Since upholstery vinyl is thinner and more smooth, it's more likely to show issues, so we need to make sure that we apply this correctly and carefully. The process is the same. We're going to be applying upholstery adhesive to both the surface and the upholstery vinyl for each of these pieces, and we will wait for it to dry before we start coating. But in particular on this piece here, this is going to be the most challenging piece because I need to work that vinyl down into all of these grooves that we made. What's going to be key here is I want to make sure that I don't just lay the sheet of vinyl across here and then try pushing the material down into these grooves. Instead, what I want to do is carefully work it into the grooves as I go. So I'll either start at the top or at the bottom, and I'm going to work it into the edges. I'll likely apply some heat in order to warm it up and help work it into these grooves even more. But the point is, I want to go from one side to the other. So now we can of course turn our attention to doing the final assembly on this. So I've got to get the JL Audio 12 TW3 shallow mount subwoofers out of their boxes. I'm going to connect the wiring and then install them into the enclosure. Once I've secured the subwoofers into place, I'm going to line up the beauty panel and start doing the assembly of all the different various fasteners on it. Installing all of these different pieces is of course something we'll need to do once we install the full enclosure into the vehicle, but I just want to do a test fit for right now to see how they look. On the back side here, we finished connecting and installing our amplifier rack. And I always like to double check and make sure our wiring is as intended for the subwoofers. Let's make sure this is 2 ohms, which it is. It also never hurts to do a quick little polarity test. If you can hear that popping noise, that's the polarity pops there. And you can see we have positive polarity here and positive polarity here as intended. Let's get that final magnetized beauty panel installed here and check it out. So let me know what you guys think. We've got the 3 different materials here with the carpet and then the 2 different colors of vinyl. And what do you guys think about that diamond pattern that we added underneath the gray vinyl? I did want to give you guys a quick view of the back side of the panels as well, because we took the time to paint these and mask them off to avoid overspray with the upholstery adhesive. I feel that these look really nice and clean as well. They really have a finished touch. Now next, we need to get this installed into the vehicle itself. So if you are new here, I would love to have you as a subscriber so that you can catch that future video. And if you want to see the rest of this build, be sure to check out the playlist on screen. Don't forget, next time you need speaker wire for a build, be sure to check out the Karma SS speaker wire from our show sponsor, New Concepts. You guys can learn more at the link down in the video description. A special thanks to them for making this video possible, along with Jerry and the rest of the Patreon membership team. And thank you guys for tuning in and watching.